The thing about Coldstream is, whether you like it or not, it is by far one of the most controversial campaigns in Left 4 Dead 2, and some people don't even know why it's there. When the truth is, Coldstream was a community campaign that has no ties to the actual story in the game. And some people do like parts of the campaign. It's got a neat waterfall set piece, and you follow streams of water that lead to the rescue chopper at the top of a rooftop. But don't jump in the helicopter blades, okay? I like the inherent mix of industrial and swamp-like elements in this campaign. The campaign is also pretty fun in versus mode, although maybe too much fun depending on who you ask. There's very cheesy death charges and jockeys riding you off the ledge. Coldstream has been around for years and it's had some ups and downs, and we pretty much have seen this entire campaign's development from its early betas to where it is today. And the map's quality varied drastically during those time periods. It was like looking into the inside of a car while it was also trying to be built at the same time. But it had a very rough start, as most campaigns do. It's also one of the only campaigns where you've been able to see its full early betas back in the day. Did you know Left 4 Dead 2 had cutscenes? Yeah, I'm sure most of you didn't even know Coldstream actually did it first, which is a bit strange because Left 4 Dead's own devs have prided themselves in creating a game that didn't need to create cutscenes to display information. But here Coldstream was doing it for whatever reason, and it wasn't received that well. Let you be the judge. That clip actually went viral for a while as people were wondering on what the heck is going on and what's with Valve's quality control, because it was pretty rough, and this is why it was removed in future updates. There was even more map differences in the early betas. They actually had very basic and rudimentary level design. The intro cutscene is slightly different. You can notice the differences here. Map 1 mostly resembles the final version, but instead of opening a hatch that leads into a safe room, there's actually no panic event at all, and you just go deep into a hole that leads you to the safe room. The whole opening the hatch element is completely absent. Still has a tank fight on map 2. There's no boulder that forces you to be in the arena. It ends in a similar fashion going down the flooded staircase, and you can tell there's a lot less particles in detail here. Map 3 has a similar layout, although in the bridge section it's harder to cross because there's larger gaps forcing you to have to go left or right in order to cross. But when you climb down the ladder, there's a big difference, and I guess the sacrifice boat made it here all the way to Coldstream. We gotta climb our way all the way down this giant ladder, and gee, I'm glad this boat is aligned perfectly with this random scaffolding because I don't know, maybe that was Bill's blessing and the sacrifice for this to happen. No Left 4 Dead 1 survivors though. The giant sailboat ladder is a pretty cheesy level design element. When going up and down giant ladders, you're actually defenseless unless your teammates are covering you. So you'll notice a lot of these were removed, as most likely this was the reason here. You actually end the level in the same junkyard location, which actually has some low-res Half-Life 2 models that were removed in future patches. And oh yeah, do you like slow motion? Because yeah, this is really slow motion. I've never really seen this done before in an official campaign. Oh yeah, and the double panic event still exists. This is the only map in the game where it forces you to have 2 panic events to fight in, so yeah, you guys, please don't play on expert, okay? Map 4's opening layout when leaving the safe room was actually a lot more different. It's more wide open and the warehouse actually looks really bare in these early patches. The tank actually can ambush you from the sides. This is actually really difficult to fight against. And the rest of map 4 is completely different and doesn't resemble the final version of Coldstream at all. This time going up and down a cliff. And don't get death charged, by the way. Instead of going through the industrial complex, you actually go deep into a forest where you find the crash helicopter from that cutscene. You find a huge ladder that leads to the second rescue chopper. It's silly level design right here. There was a much duller look when you just see these early updates, but that's pretty understandable. This is still in beta. But we can't talk about Coldstream without bugs and exploits. A lot of these have been patched out in future updates, but the earlier updates had plenty of glitches. Some of these exist to this very day, and to be real, it is the most consistent campaign for random crashes for players, as this campaign has some real optimization issues even to this day. That's why we call this campaign Crash Stream, because it just crashes for no reason sometimes. While I complimented its map design at points, you can also say it's somewhat uninspired and isn't really doing that much differently from other campaigns in the game. But I'll return to that point later on in the video. Some people don't know the truth behind why Coldstream is the way it is and why it was chosen to even be created. Some people don't even know it wasn't created by Valve. It was simply outsourced, and they were looking for a map creator to actually make a campaign, and they actually found one. The campaign that ultimately inspired Coldstream was this campaign right here, 2 Evil Eyes. Chet, one of Left 4 Dead 2's developers, had a fondness for 2 Evil Eyes and was a big fan of the campaign. And shout out to Chet, by the way. He makes good content about his time working at Valve, and he's been pretty helpful for the community. Most people see 2 Evil Eyes as a rather strange choice because it doesn't have a high level of quality, nowhere near to the same level of plenty of other custom campaigns that were out at the time. Like Suicide Blitz 2 existed in the same time period. To put it in perspective, that's one of the best campaigns of all time in my opinion. The devs behind 2 Evil Eyes was ultimately chosen. And if you've never heard of this campaign, don't worry, I got you covered. We're going to be going over every single map because it actually has quite a bit of similarities to Coldstream. The campaign begins with a similar atmosphere of Coldstream. The map wants you to break a door right off the bat, and it's an extremely early panic event, which is a strange way to start out a campaign, but here we are. You eventually make your way into a swamp section that takes you to a ladder where at the top of the ladder, voila, the safe room is here. And gee, this map is also really short, like extremely short. This is one of the shortest levels I've ever played, guys. Why does this level exist? I don't know, but whatever, I guess. Moving on to map 2, you get to a bridge section where you eventually make your way into a swamp section, which according to this sign is actually Riverside. Make your way into a giant crash plain and field full of buildings, and you'll eventually make your way into the safe room. Map 3, the next level starts out with another daytime swamp section where you'll jump across the boards and then a ladder that leads into a manhole. Falling down the manhole is a completely linear section of the game. Opening the freezer door will take you to the panic event, and the panic event has you climbing up the bridge, and this is where the campaign actually begins to resemble Coldstream quite a bit, where it blends the industrial elements with the swamp elements. Now, once you turn off the alarm at the factory, as the gate is now down, and you will make your way across the bridge reminiscent to Swamp Fever, a tank will spawn at this point, and if you make your way down to a cabin, you'll find that there's a boat. And also there's poisonous water for whatever reason. Get out of it immediately. Okay, what are you doing? There's a panic event too, but I hope you're not making accidents in your pants after that, because moving on. Go up the ladder, of course, and because this campaign loves ladders, you can expect more of those, okay? And then the safe room is in the shack. Now for map 4, once you start the next level, you will enter a bridge section that is very reminiscent to Coldstream's map 3 section. And once you start crossing the bridge, boom, a panic event, baby. I hope you knew that this was coming because panic events need to stop. If you don't know at higher difficulties that surprise panic events are gonna come, you most likely can die here. Once the bridge falls, you go into the swamp, and it's actually kind of a neat level design here, but boom, safe room in the corner. Next, we start map 5. The next level begins, you make your way to a graveyard. The weather is pretty much straight from hard rain. So you gotta make your way in the dark, fighting zombies in a cemetery. You randomly fall through the floor, now you're in a train section. You gotta shoot the gas cans and get out of the tunnel as, oh no, there's now a panic event. And once you make your way down to the tunnel, you're gonna start the van, and then boom, another panic event. You see this pattern here? There's a lot of panic events. Make a fast dash to the safe room. Another comparison to Coldstream is right here, is both of these campaigns aren't afraid to put multiple panic events in a single map. Now make your way into the Swamp Fever finale safe room, and voila, an empty swamp that takes you to a mountain area, and this feels very reminiscent to some of the aspects of Coldstream's finale, where you're dropping down creeks and then you fight a tank. Make your way to the holdout finale, and then this part takes place near the shacks. And fun fact, there's some god spots like climbing on the top of the roof and then just camping there, as yeah, double the fun, right? There's a really easy way to fix this. You just make the nav meshes actually work here, and then it actually will connect properly, and then you won't have weird god spot problems. Whatever. This is made by the Coldstream creator. There's another ladder. It leads to the helicopter. Voila, that's 2 Evil Eyes, baby. By the way, the campaign is 6 chapters long. So I don't really know why it's 6 chapters long, since the first level is just very fast paced and it's really short. The next level is also pretty forgettable and short anyways. Why don't we just put those together and make it 5 maps? I don't know, but the pacing of this campaign is pretty strange. So you might be asking, what do I think about 2 Evil Eyes? Well, it's interesting to see some of the same ideas inspiring Coldstream. The problems with this campaign is, look, I feel like I'm kind of being a jerk going down this road, but I've made some pretty terrible maps back in the day. I've uploaded a lot of just terrible campaigns, okay? Trust me. Mapping is really difficult. I'm not gonna criticize another developer for what they decided to create. If I were to give this campaign some constructive criticism, first of all, 2 Evil Eyes states that it's a fantasy style campaign. Maybe that's some way of making sense of some of the silly things that are happening in these maps. It's quite questionable level design at points. The strange balance between real and fake, it just feels strange. And then you feed in panic event after panic event after panic event in these maps. You start map 1 and it just is a total cakewalk. And then you go to these later maps and then it just is spamming panic event after panic event after panic event. A lot of these levels I feel like could have been removed or put together. They just feel kind of pointless on their own. No one really wants to play a map that is horribly paced and is just spamming zombie events. It shows how difficult it can be to balance a campaign, and that's another problem with 2 Evil Eyes. 2 Evil Eyes has no original bone in its body. Many of the areas of this campaign feel like Swamp Fever. There's literally 2 dead air panic events that are exactly the same in the same map. And then you get to the cemetery section that feels just like it's from the parish, or you get to the bridge section that is also just like the parish. And many people complain about Coldstream sort of using this idea too. You have the hard rain effects. I mean, it's fine when mappers use them. After all the reused elements over and over and over again, they just start to stick out. And look, I'm fine with mappers reusing certain stuff that Valve has created, and heck, even I've done it. But when entire sections of maps can just be summarized as, yeah, this is basically Swamp Fever, this is basically the parish, this is basically hard rain, then your campaign has a lot of problems. And many sections of this campaign are really amateur level design wise. You'll see that there's props that are inside each other, wheels that are clipping through stuff like the road, and it's understandable though. My goal is not to wish any ill will towards the mapper, but these problems in this campaign bleed over to a lot of the same aspects that people complain about in Coldstream. The lighting elements, the difficulty, the double panic events, the bridge sections, the swamp sections, the areas that are very reminiscent to other Valve maps exist in both campaigns. Although these problems are for sure more prominent in 2 Evil Eyes, the thing about Coldstream is the campaign lacks originality in some people's view. Almost every single panic event involves you running through a gauntlet to a safe room. The strengths of the campaign though are the visuals. I will commend how good they really made this campaign look in the later updates. But I feel like again and again I might sound like a jerk here. What's the point of Coldstream as a campaign? Like seriously, Left 4 Dead 2 has 2 other campaigns in the base roster of maps where they feature water elements as the main selling points of these campaigns. And Coldstream really does lack originality. It feels like a sort of middle ground between Swamp Fever and Hard Rain stylistically. This is why people will basically call Coldstream a custom map. I think Coldstream is steps down from plenty of other custom maps that were actually able to do some similar things. And they are classics to this day, like Suicide Blitz or I Hate Mountain. In both these campaigns, they have unique set pieces, like Suicide Blitz's pier that leads all the way to a giant football stadium, or I Hate Mountain's expansive mountainscapes that have alternate pathways that lead you to a lakeside finale. And both of these maps predate 2 Evil Eyes. And if you look at Coldstream, I like elements of it. It's a better campaign now than it was back then. It being an official map is why people commonly criticize it. Mapping is extremely time consuming and difficult, so this is again, no way me trying to just dunk on the dev here. For an official Valve update, people have extremely high standards, as the entire player base is going to play the updates, so you definitely have to bring your A game when it comes to this thing. If you want a little bit more of Coldstream trivia, there was actually an update where they added a bunch of models and materials that were only in the beta updates for Coldstream. So randomly one day, these elements were deleted from Coldstream, even though they were in the game for for a while, and there were a bunch of beta elements that were scrapped. Well, when these models were removed, it actually screwed over a lot of custom mappers because they had to re-add these models into their own custom campaigns or download a mod that later fixed this by downloading these and putting these in the base game. But because these models were removed so late in the game, there would actually be some missing textures and error signs. Basically, that's how the source engine sees models, that when they're missing is they become errors. And there was a whole bunch of bugs for just the removal of these models. Anyways, thank you guys for watching the video. There's a Patreon down below if you guys want to support the channel and get more videos. I know I mostly make Smash content. I love Left 4 Dead 2 a lot. It's definitely one of my favorite games of all time. I'll probably make another video on it, maybe about the grenade launcher. Thank you, take care, peace.